Hello, teachers from around the world, and welcome to Legendary Educator, the podcast that helps you improve your performance in the classroom and have more engaged and motivated students. My name is Ramis Takawi. I'm a teacher and instructional coach, and I created this podcast because I'm passionate about education and about students achieving their highest potential. My guest this week is Miss Nairy Simon, school principal at New Generation International Schools in Cairo, Egypt. As a head of school, Miss Nairy has the unique opportunity to peer inside all of her teachers' classrooms to evaluate and analyze, to get a bigger picture, a clearer picture of the status of what's going on with teaching today. Miss Nairy is also a PhD candidate, and so needless to say, she probably knows a thing or two about education. We talk about how education is evolving and the new teaching methods that are now necessary in today's classrooms. We also talk about the effects of the COVID pandemic on students, where kids had to stay home for several years, and how this has impacted their learning development. And as always, we end with her advice for new teachers going to the classroom for the first time. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes as they drop. All right, let's get to know our guest this week.
Hi, my name is Nairy Simon. I've been in education for over 25 years now. I go by Miss Nairy. I love teaching. I've been doing it all my life. My favorite teacher, when I go back, first of all, I had a favorite teacher. Her name was Mrs. Sherman. She was my grade 1 teacher, and I still remember her up until this day. It's because she was so kind. I remember how she used to come and pat my shoulder when I was writing and trying to do my writing assignments in grade 1, writing sentences. And especially cursive. I still remember the copybook and how it was and how she had that warm smile. And she always had that warmth within her that I could always feel inside the classroom. She was my favorite teacher for a very, very long time. Until the past 16 weeks, my professor, my doctorate degree, I was introduced to this marvelous professor. Her name was Dr. Asaf. And she taught me everything about how a professor, when she empowers and supports her students, how miracles can literally happen. And she is now my number 1 teacher. She is my role model from the amount of support, feedback, and guidance and understanding I have received from this professor in a way that I could never put it in words and describe it. She is that person that I would believe any student would wish to have as a professor, as a person to guide, as a mentor or a coach, whether throughout their studies, whether their post-studies, any studies, having her would make anybody's life easier. It's just, she was a backbone to me. So she is, for now, she is my number 1 teacher or professor, number 1.
Mrs. Nairy, you have been an educator for most of your life?
Since the age of 12, and yes, 12 is a real number. I did start in education at the age of 12. I used to work as a trainee during summer with my mom. I used to go to a nursery, a really small nursery in Cairo, and that's where all my passion started. I was a kid with kids and doing everything that teachers would do inside the classroom, and the magic, everything started from there, from the age of 12.
You are currently working on your PhD.
Yes, that's correct.
So the question here is why? Why are you going further with your own education up to a PhD level? What's the point? What is your goal?
That's a great question, Ramis. Well, learning has no end. And the person that tells you there's an end to learning, like if you know this amount of knowledge, then you've learned enough, that's not true. Because we learn every day. And the person who stops at a certain place or a certain goal or at a certain level in their life and they say, I know it all. I think that this is all I need to know and I've covered everything and this is more than enough. I'm good here. It's fine. I mean, I'm not judging anybody. That's great. I mean, if that works for you and you're happy with that, that's great. But if you really are passionate about learning, then you're going to want to learn every day and it's never going to stop. Even after the PhD, it's not about the degree, by the way. It's not what you're getting at. It's not the certificate. It's the process itself. It is how you as a person develop every single day with something new that builds onto your personality and changes you in so many ways. The knowledge that you get the information that you learn, the way that you could apply it in your everyday life is actually mind-boggling if you think about it. When I read something and for articles, like, as you said, it's a PhD, so I've taken my master's before and I'm pretty knowledgeable. I can say that about myself. But believe me that up until this day, I come across researches and across articles that when I read them, I look in front of them and I freeze and I'm just like, wow, I had no idea this is how it's supposed to be done. Not only that, it's about self-development. Things change, life moves on so fast that you need to move fast with that change. If we stop where we were taught or the things that we have learned 10 or 20 years ago, there's no way you're going to be able to stand in front of all of the adversities and all of the changes that are happening nowadays, especially in education, especially with students and especially with teachers. So in order for you to meet those challenges and in order for you to understand what is happening around you, you need to evolve as a person as well. And that's only going to happen by reading, by understanding, by listening, by knowing what's happening around you now and trying to change the way you look at things in a different way so that you could meet the needs of the students and the teachers now and after 10 years and after 20 years, because everything will evolve and will change eventually.
Okay, let's see if we can dive a little bit deeper. In the modern age, how has education changed in the classroom from 10 or 20 years ago?
Oh my God. Do you have like 3 days so we can sit down and talk about that?
We got 20 minutes.
First of all, there are so many things that have changed inside the classrooms with the students in particular. First of all, let's talk about student behavior. If we take 3 aspects, let's talk about student behavior. Students 10 or 20 years ago are not the students that are now that we're seeing inside the classroom. Students are more inquisitive. Students are asking more questions. Students are being more outspoken and they know their rights and their responsibilities and they will not take no for an answer. So if a teacher just stands up there and says, no, you're not going to go to break, their answer is going to be why. And they will keep on answering and speaking and talking until they get an answer. Students have evolved in the way that they are thinking. And because of the drastic technological era that we are in currently, and because of all of the advancements that we are seeing, you have kids that are the age of 2 who know how to turn and unlock an iPhone, where you could find somebody who's at the age of 80 still holds a phone and has no idea what does this do. So this advancement in technology has changed the mindsets of students and the way that they look at things. The exposure, the huge exposure that's all around the world, that everybody knows exactly what is happening and they have details and answers for every question, that is a huge exposure that students have been subjected to. If you look from the academic area, students are not as interested in academics as they were 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. Students now are looking at different areas. They're looking at business. They're looking at social media, which is the number one now, that they're looking at businesses, entrepreneurships. They're not looking that it's important for me to just take a degree and just sit at a job, at a desk. They're looking at everything in such a different angle and different perspective. And for you to sit down and try to convince students inside the classroom that, you know what, we need to take that calculus lesson, we need to cover that biology topic, for them it's just like, well, I'll just Google it and I have the answers already there. Why do I just have to sit down and listen to a teacher just talking about all that? Right. That itself is a challenge inside the classroom, because teachers nowadays are facing a huge challenge, not with the academics whatsoever, because academics has not changed. It has not evolved. Yeah, we're changing standards, we're changing benchmarks, but the topics are all still there. Ever since I graduated from high school, they're the same things, yeah, with some changes, but still it's the same thing. So what's happening inside the classroom, that students are not being receptive, they're not being that helpful for the teacher to understand and to participate and to engage inside the classroom. Teachers are facing a huge challenge actually getting students only engaged in the topic. It's one of the hardest things, because students have the answers for everything now. All they need to do is a click of a button. They need to just download a YouTube app and there, voila, they have the entire lesson at the tip of their hand and they can work on it. So that itself, the textbook, the desks sitting inside the classroom all alone is a huge challenge, and it's a change. It's an entire change in the educational perspective, where I'm surprised that nobody's looking at that. We're just looking into how are we going to change the curricula? What are we going to do next? What kind of books are we going to purchase? Should it be textbook or online book? But the content itself hasn't changed or even shifted one bit. We're not looking at what these kids are listening. What are these kids interested in? We're just really focused on the curriculum, and what needs to be covered. And that is not anymore what the students want to hear. That's not the approach they want us to take at school. The other side that we have, another area that we have that's a huge challenge, is the past 2 years with Corona and what has happened, and the emotional and behavioral aspect that has touched every single child. And I'm going to hear talk about Rama's, most importantly, the younger students. We're talking about kindergarten up until grades 1 and 2, which is the foundation stage. These students who were supposed to take the foundation and take the basics of writing, reading, socializing, all of this has gone because they've been at home for 2-3 years. We have parents up until now are still scared to send their children to school, and they're a little bit of the hybrid approach, or should they stay at home? And that 2-3 years took a huge chunk of their life. It took a part of their social interaction. It made them more intimate, more scared to speak. They're using more physical, and their behavior is more aggressive because they haven't been communicating with people for such a long time, so that at the first contradiction or the first challenge that happens, they just snap and they just hit, and violence just comes over there.
Wow.
Their speech is not as fluent as it should be at the developmental stages, especially at the young age, because they haven't been talking. They've been using the phone. They've been sitting online. Their motor skills, like cutting, scissors, coloring, writing, the hand grip itself isn't as strong as it should be because they haven't been practicing it. I have up until now challenges with spelling because students have been texting, and for them, they don't know how to write. They know it in their mind, but when they come on paper to write an essay or to write something, they use the abbreviations like the people, PPL, and they're not using the entire word. And this is why, because they're not used to writing. Nobody nowadays uses pencil and a paper to write a paper or an essay or anything. They use now texting and laptops and computers. And that itself is something that we're looking at a stone age. We're still at school asking students to always resort to writing instead of trying to go in the middle and say that we need to find a middle ground to meet the needs of what these kids really want and how can we really engage them. So as you can see, there are so many areas, Ramez. I mean, I can go on and on with the amount of challenges
let me take what you've said so far. Let me ask you a couple of questions based on what you've said so far. So it's not fair for the teachers nowadays, the current teachers who are facing all these challenges of the delays due to, the COVID and the kids staying home for a couple of years. But it is a part, unfortunately, of their job, and it is their responsibility. What are they supposed to do?
They're supposed to receive as much support as possible from the school. Teachers are the heart of any school. A school without teachers is no school, because teachers are who make everything possible at the end of the day. School administration, anybody else besides teachers, they're just facilitators of the actual importance, mission, and the mission of any educational institution, which is teaching. But the number one people inside any school are the teachers. Teachers need a lot of support. Teachers need to feel like they are surrounded with people that they can rely on, that they know that they're going to help them, that they're going to be there not to criticize them, but to hold their hand and tell them, what can I do to help you? To understand that what the first step I would tell you, Ramit, is that an administrator needs to understand what the teachers are actually going through so that they can find ways to help them how to overcome that. I do believe that one of the most important successful ingredients within a teacher's life is support, feedback, and empowerment. And I can't stop talking about these three important things: support, feedback, and empowerment. When teachers are supported, they feel the support, genuine support. I'm not talking about the support that I tell you, do you need any help? Oh, you don't? Okay, fine. I'll just leave you and go. That's not support. That's just you saying something that you just need to say. I'm talking about genuine, sincere support, that it's really that they feel it, that they know that that person really wants to help you. When they receive that support and they receive the guidance through feedback, what do you need? How can we make this better? What do we need to do to tackle this challenge now? How are we going to solve it together? Teachers will feel empowered. And you can't imagine when teachers feel empowered, and empowerment will come by them knowing that the person in front of them trusts them. I know that you can do that. when teachers feel like they are empowered inside the classroom, that they know that even if they mess something up, there will be somebody back there saying that it's okay, I'm going to help you. We're going to work this out together. Teachers will be able to deliver their challenging mission nowadays, because teaching nowadays is not a piece of cake. Maybe in the past, I remember when I was a teacher around 10 years ago, students were not acting the way that they're acting now. I see now the behavior challenges inside the classroom. I see the academic challenges teachers are facing. I can see how students are not participating and engaging, and they're just sitting there. And that itself is so difficult. Imagine sitting in front of an audience, you're trying to teach something, and they're not interested. And no matter what you do, no matter what you try to do, it's not the same. You need to be acting like a clown in there, and they'll just look at you and just like go, okay, wow, great.
So what is a teacher supposed to do? Like, what is the feedback? What is the support that the administration or the school is supposed to give them? Again, it's not fair, right? I was a teacher before COVID. I stopped teaching before COVID. I don't know what's going on inside the classroom now. I don't have that feedback, but I mean, I can imagine it's double the work, right? It's a delay of 2 years for these kids, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. They are delayed by at least 2 years. What is a teacher supposed to do?
We watered down the curriculum, first of all. The curriculum has to go down a little bit. That's one of the things. You can't teach second graders using the second grade curriculum. That would be just crazy. When you're teaching second graders, you need to say that I'm going to go down one grade level and I want to start with the basics. I'm going to start with the ABC. I can't challenge a teacher and ask her to teach a group of students who are functioning at a grade 1 level, giving them a grade 2 curriculum. So what you have to do is the first thing that you need to look at the curriculum, and you need to see that where these kids are now and what do I need to give them now so that I can meet their needs based on what their level is right now. And then after you lower down the curriculum, lessen the expectations of the curriculum. You don't need to do all of these and cover all of this in the first semester. You need to cover A, B, and C. Let's take a look. Let's see where these kids are after you teach these lessons. And then let's come back again and see, all right, we can move forward, or no, we're going to still stay here until things will move up. It's going to take at least from a year to 2 years with the curriculum until students start to recap and get back to where they were before post-COVID.
But isn't there going to be a ripple effect of this? Like if we're watering down the curriculum in grade 2 or 3, when are we going to catch up when they reach high school? I mean, aren't they going to be late or delayed or not where they're supposed to be?
Well, it's not going to be an entire watering down, Is what happens is it goes parallel with the curriculum. So there are some topics that it's going to come, and it mainly has to do with the reading and the writing sections. Topics as in concepts wouldn't be difficult to teach, because a concept, whether it's taught, you can go back and add to the main body of the concept. Like if you're talking in science or you're talking in math, you can give the basic foundations and build onto that. But the main struggle has to do with the reading and the writing. And the main struggle, as it is, and the main struggles that the students have faced with a younger age, it's the writing and the reading. And the younger you go, the more the challenge, because if a KG1 student was supposed to take the ABCs, and by the time they went to grade 1, you have a student in grade 1 who can't read, write, speak, or even interact socially with anybody. The other problems that we face with the upper grades wouldn't have to do more with reading and writing, because they've already mastered those skills. The challenges that you face with the upper grades has to do more with their emotional and social area, because exactly, students have become extremely antisocial. They're not talking with each other as they were. They're more shy. They're really laid back. And they snap at least the first conflict that arises, issues happen, and they become very physical and verbal and aggressive. And that is going to take some time until students can get out of it, by trying to push them into more activities, to put them more into group work.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is the teacher supposed to do?
Yeah, it's pushing it in a lot of interaction, things that have to do with speaking, group work. You have to force them to do it, because if you leave it up to the student, I've seen it inside the classroom, they're like, no, I want to do it on my own. I don't want to do it with anybody else. So you're going to have to create those moments inside the class, and those lessons have to be made tailored in a way where students have to go up and present. No, you are going to talk about it. You're going to use your presentation skills. When you're going to be doing this presentation, you're not going to do it alone. You have to do it with somebody else. You need to have a buddy or a team, and you have to have a group together. We have to encourage these kinds of interactions, in opposed to the individual interactions where a child wants to be all alone by themselves. And that has been quite difficult at the beginning because we've seen a lot of resistance towards that.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see that it's picking up as the months are going by. Things are getting a little bit better, not better, a little bit better.
If you're talking to a brand new teacher who's going into the classroom for the first time, what are some of the things you'd tell them?
Don't be afraid.
Yes,
I'm going to tell them, don't be afraid. I'm going to tell them, I know you're going to, because what happens is that especially teachers who have no idea about teaching and it's their first year, they think it's so cute from the movies that they watch and the books that they read, and that they think that when they're going to enter the class, the kids really do sit down and they do listen. And I'm just like, that's not what happens inside the classroom. So I'm going to tell them, don't be afraid of what you're going to see and you're going to experience. And you have to come every day and get that out. And you need to talk to somebody, whether your mentor or your coach, because it's frightening. It's scary when the teacher enters, especially new teachers who have never, ever taught before. You should see how their face glows and they think that, you know what, oh my God, I'm going inside my classroom, and they have all those little stickers up there and their door is all shiny and pretty and they have their markers set, and the kids come in and then it's like, pew, you know what? It's like something exploded in their face. They come out outside the classroom. I've seen that phase before. Teachers come out after the first session, just like, oh my God, what happened? Why are the kids this way? I didn't see that coming. I would tell them, I told you, don't be scared. It's going to be okay.
My first year teaching, I remember every day I used to say, I need a beer and a tissue. I want to drink and I want to cry.
so you're cool that you came out with a
tame,
tissue and beer.
I was tame.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, no,
it's
not easy. Teaching is not easy, especially nowadays. Teaching has become one of the most, although it is one of the most rewarding. That's the word I was looking for. Teaching is the most rewarding job in the world, and yet the most challenging. Let me just put it to you this way, Ramos. It is challenging. It is very challenging nowadays, teaching, but it is possible. It can be done. But it just needs the right support system. It needs the right system. It needs the right group of people together so that you can make it happen.
Well, thank you, Ms. Nairy, for your time, and thank you for being a guest on my podcast. I will have you again because you are extremely knowledgeable, extremely educated, and we would all like to hear more from you. So I appreciate that.
I'd feel really honored, Ramas, to join your podcast at any time. Anything that has to do with education, you'll see me talking and talking and talking.
Yes.
So please, I'd love to have you to have any kind of conversation with you at any time, any day. I'm absolutely okay with it. It was a pleasure speaking with you as well.
I will call on you again. Don't worry.
Thank you, Ramas. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's our show for today. Share this episode with your teacher friends who might benefit from listening to it. And of course, please rate this episode and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. I'm Ramos Takawi, and this is Legendary Educator. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.